key principle to weight loss. So understanding how to actually lose weight. So the whole purpose behind this presentation is to give you an understanding of how the body actually loses weight so that you can highlight areas within your own life that you could improve so that you can start losing that weight that you want to get rid of. So things we're going to go over during this presentation. We're going to go over the key principle to weight loss. We'll go over what a calorie is as well. We'll determine energy in, and also we'll cover energy out. So the key principle when it comes to weight loss is to ensure that your energy in is less than your energy out. So in other words, you need to be consuming less energy in the form of calories than you are actually burning throughout the day or through the weeks. So if you're able to achieve this deficit, then your body then has to rely on its stored energy. And the largest storage of energy within your body is in the form of fat. So you're going to start breaking down fat and using that to make up that energy deficit. So you need to be thinking and trying to work out ways to create that deficit, because if you are not creating that deficit right now, that is why you are not losing weight. Okay, so you need to think of ways to either reduce your energy in or increase your energy out, or even better, a combination of the two. And hopefully throughout this lesson, throughout this presentation, you'll see areas that you can improve straight away to start creating that energy deficit. All right, so what is a calorie? Now you'll hear me talk interchangeably a lot of the time between energy and calorie. And that's because it's more or less the same thing. All a calorie is just the measurement of energy. Okay? So you can consume calories through food and drinks, and that's considered energy in, or you can burn calories through movement and other bodily functions like staying alive, breathing, your heart beating, all of those types of things, and that's considered energy out. So just to go over a couple of terms here, I'll just bring them all up. Now, when we're talking about calories and energy and all sorts of stuff, you'll probably see different terms thrown out there all the time. And I just want to give you a bit of an understanding of them so that when you do see them, you're just not confused by it. So the very first thing, so we'll just move back up here. So the very first thing with calories is that they are actually kilocalories. But for some reason, and I'm still unsure why it's actually written like that they're just referred to as calorie. Now, I have read a bit about if you see a capital C with calorie, then that's what sort of signifies that it's a kilocalorie. But even then, you'll even see it with the lowercase c in the calorie, and it still means exactly the same thing. So if you see kilocalorie written, then just be aware it is exactly the same thing as a calorie, but for some reason we just refer to it as a calorie. Now, a kilojoule, okay, again, it's the same thing as a calorie, but the difference being is that it's a metric measurement of the energy rather than an imperial. So thinking of miles, which is like when we're talking about distance, miles is in imperial, whereas kilometers is a metric version. So it's the same thing, it's still measuring the same thing, it's just a different type of measurement. Okay, in Australia, we are a metric system, so we should be using kilojoules, but majority of people, including myself, we use calories just because it's such a smaller number and an easier number to work with. As you can see there, kilojoules is around about 4 times greater number than calories. So calculating that and putting it all together, it's just a really big number to work with when you can just work with calories, which is much smaller and easier to work with. Okay, so when you see them on the back of the on the nutritional label and whatever else that you're looking at, if you see kilojoules, you know what we're talking about now. If you see kilocalorie, you probably won't see that on nutritional labels, but you may see it pop up every now and then you know that it's the same thing as a calorie. Now, calorie deficit is the key principle that we're talking about. So that is energy deficit. So you'll hear people talking about being in a calorie deficit. That just means you are consuming less calories than you are actually burning. And like I said, that is the key principle. Now, if you hear someone saying they're in a calorie deficit, but they're still not losing weight, as shown before, it's impossible for that to actually happen. There's something going on there, and I'll outline all of the areas later on, but there's something going on that's not creating that calorie deficit. People always just think of a calorie deficit in the form of food and doing a little bit of training. That's only a very small portion of it, and yes, that can create a calorie deficit, but you need to look at the whole picture. There's many other things that go into it rather than just eating a heap less and trying to train more. There are other areas that we can try to improve. So yeah, if you hear someone talking about a calorie deficit, that just means they're aiming for that deficit in energy with their training, with their movement, with their nutrition, all of that type of stuff. So let's talk about energy in. As I was saying before, the only way to get energy into your body, the only way to consume calories is through food and drinks. You actually have to consume it. Okay, and it's important to understand that different foods, different types of foods, yield different amounts of energy. So if something is a higher fat food, it's gonna yield more energy than if something is higher protein, because your food is broken up. Not to go into too much detail with this is going to be in a later lesson, but food is broken up into 3 different macronutrients, and you most probably would have heard of them. So there's fats, there's protein, and there's carbohydrates. Fats yield the most amount of calories per gram compared to carbohydrates and protein. So fats is 9 calories per gram, whereas carbohydrates and protein, they only yield 4 calories. So just with that, if you're going for a calorie deficit, then the higher fat foods may not be your best choice, because you can't eat anywhere near as much, and they'll yield a lot more calories compared to if you're eating high protein meals. Okay, so ways that you can control your energy in. So there's many different methods you can use to try to improve your energy in. So trying to decrease that amount of calories that you are eating. Okay, portion control is a huge part of it. Making sure you're just eating the right portions of food. So there's a couple of different methods that you can use. There's the palm method, the hand method, and there's different sizes on your hand. For instance, like a piece of meat is the size of your palm. You should be aiming for 2 fists full of vegetables or salads, and so on with the hand method. And then there's the perfect plate, which is up in the corner there, where you just figure out on your plate, just as long as it's a normal size plate and not just a giant plate, how much of a particular food you should be having on that. And it's just a really simple, easy way to control your portions, and in turn, it'll be controlling the amount of calories that you're eating through the day. You want to avoid high calorie foods. So like I was saying before, different types of foods yield different amounts of calories. So you want to avoid high fat foods, because such little, like they yield so many calories within the same amount of protein or carbohydrates. So you need to try to avoid those high fats, because they're just loaded with those calories, and it's really easy to go over what you need for the day. You need to avoid easily overconsumed calories. So things like sugary drinks, alcohol. So alcohol is actually a macronutrient as well. So like I was talking about with the fats, proteins, and carbs, alcohol is actually another one. And it has 7 calories per gram of alcohol. So it's actually higher in calories compared to protein or carbohydrates. It's a little bit less than fats, but it's still higher than those others. And that is why it's so easy to put on weight if you're drinking a lot of alcohol, because it has so many calories in it, and it's just really easy to consume it. Other things like fast foods, they're designed to taste good and want more. So it's easy to eat them. So you're going to be eating a lot more calories and getting a lot more energy in than what you need. Okay, planning and prepping your food, huge one. Making sure you've it doesn't have to be like really detailed with down to the last calorie or anything like that. just a simple plan of what you're going to eat throughout the week, and prepping that food is going to change your diet dramatically, because you're going to be making healthier choices rather than having no food for the night and going out and getting some McDonald's because it's quick and easy and you couldn't be bothered going to the shops and getting some food or anything. So planning and prepping your food will have a huge impact on what you're actually eating throughout the week. Now you can create some awareness and accountability for what you're eating as well, and this will have a really big effect too. So creating awareness by sitting down and eating your food slowly and without distractions. Like, have a nice family meal, or sit down with some friends and actually have that meal and enjoy it, rather than being on your phone or watching a TV show that's distracting you away from what you're actually eating. And you're becoming more aware of it, and you'll be more aware that you're actually getting full and you won't overeat. You can also create some accountability for what you're eating too. So you can do this through food journaling. There's a really good app called MyFitnessPal that you can download, and you just journal everything that you eat. And it actually shows you how many calories that you're eating for the day, and it holds you accountable for what and how much you are actually eating. All right, so let's go into energy out. So your body can burn energy in 3 different ways. So I'm just going to briefly go over them here, and then we'll dive into them a little bit more in the next slide. So number 1 is your basal metabolic rate. Okay, we got thermic effect of food. We've got physical activity, so energy expenditure through actually moving. And that can be broken down into non-exercise activity thermogenesis and exercise activity thermogenesis. So just the acronyms there that are highly used is NEAT, is in the non-exercise activity thermogenesis, and the EAT, and that's your planned sports and training and things like that. But I'll go over them in detail in a second. So just remembering that there's those three different ways that we can actually burn. So it's not just a matter of doing more training. There's 3 ways we can burn energy through the day: through basal metabolic rate, thermic effect of food, and physical activity energy expenditure. And it's actually 4, because it can be non-exercise and your actual planned exercise. So putting all of them together, that creates your total daily energy expenditure. Okay, so pretty much just how much you are burning throughout the day. So let's dive in and have a look at them a little bit more. So your basal metabolic rate. So this makes up 60 to 70% of your total daily energy expenditure. So what this is the rate of energy used at rest to maintain vital functions, to stay alive, such as breathing and keeping warm, all those types of things that's vital for your living. So you just sleeping, sitting around doing absolutely nothing, there's still a lot going on in your body to keep you alive, and that's where the majority of your calories come from. Okay, thermic effect of food. So this makes up 10 to 15% of your total daily energy expenditure. And what this is, it's the amount of energy that's used to actually digest, absorb, and store the nutrients in the food that you've eaten. And I'll go over in a second, but there's actually different foods create a different amount of energy requirement to go through these processes. So not all foods are made the same. Breaking them down into those macronutrients, again, the protein, fats, and carbs, protein is actually the one that takes the most amount of energy to digest, absorb, and store the nutrients. So when we're looking at the energy in versus energy out, having protein with every meal is going to be very beneficial, because you're going to increase the amount of energy it's taking your body to go through those processes to digest, absorb, and store those nutrients. Okay, so we got physical activity energy expenditure. So this one makes up a big bulk of it. So it's 15 to 30% of your total daily energy expenditure, and you've got full control over this. So you've got control over this one, and you've got control over, I've gone too far back here, and you've got control over your thermic effect of food. So your basal metabolic rate, you can do things to improve that as well, But the big ones that you've got massive control over is this thermic effect of food. But remember, that's only about 10 to 15%. But then this one is your physical activity energy expenditure, making up 15 to 30% of your energy expenditure through the day. So this is pretty much anything that not even requires movement. I've put down during bodily movement, but things like just standing here like I'm doing presenting this presentation. It takes energy to keep yourself in a posture or holding yourself up, like your legs are working to hold yourself up. And you'd be surprised how much energy that actually takes when you're doing it all day, every day. So it can be broken down. So physical activity energy expenditure can be broken down into two categories. So we've got the non-exercise activity thermogenesis. So non-exercise activity, and the easy way to say this is the NEAT. Okay, so this is energy used for little movements or tasks like that you do throughout the day. So they're not considered actual training, so it's not moderate to vigorous sort of exercise, but it's still activity. So you're still doing stuff. So things like walking, taking the stairs, vacuuming, doing all sorts of chores through the house, playing fetch with the dog, talking, standing, tapping your foot, just fidgeting, all of that type of stuff is considered NEAT and actually burns a lot of calories through the day. So this is the largest amount of your total daily energy expenditure that you have control of. But a lot of people don't look at this part of it. They look straight into training. I need to train more. I need to train harder, all this type of stuff. But they're not looking at the rest of their day. What are they doing? Are they just sitting on their bum all day and not burning any sort of calories when you can easily just be doing small little things like standing up and walking over to the fountain, water fountain, and grabbing a drink every so often, or if you've got the opportunity to have a stand-up desk like I have got right now, putting the desk up for half an hour, sit back down for another hour or so, standing up, doing that, the typical one, taking the stairs instead of the elevator. Lots and lots of things like this that you can be doing throughout your whole day that will actually equate to a hell of a lot more calorie burn, so energy expenditure throughout your day compared to if you're just increasing the amount of training that you're doing. So the last thing is what I was just talking about there is the exercise activity thermogenesis. So EAT, and that only works out to be around about 5 to 10%. Obviously, all of these are going off just a healthy, active individual, but if we've got something that isn't doing any sort of planned training or sport, so they aren't doing any sort of EAT exercise, then they're going to be at 0%. So just adding something like that is going to make a really big difference. And like I said before, if someone's just sitting around on their bum all day and you just got them to do a couple of 5-minute walks throughout the day, every single day for the week, imagine how many more calories they're going to be burning just doing that. Okay, so this is just a bit of a graph to give you an understanding of the different amounts of energy that we're burning from those different areas. So basal metabolic rate, like I said, 60 to 70%. And we do have slight control over this, but not much at all. That's the sort of thing that goes off your age, your sex, things like that. But the things that we do have control over with that basal metabolic rate is making sure we've got a healthy metabolism, creating as much muscle mass as possible because that is metabolically active, just at rest compared to fat. So you're going to be burning more calories just by sitting around. And just making sure you've got a healthy metabolism, making sure you're sleeping enough, drinking enough water, eating the correct foods, all that type of thing is going to create a healthier metabolism. So just at rest, like when you're sleeping, when you're just sitting around, you're going to burn more calories because you're a lot more healthier rather than someone that's just slowing down and just and their body is just not healthy at all. All right, then we got the thermic effect of food. That's just the 10 to 15%. We can play around with that ever so slightly by improving the protein intake that we're having. And we got physical activity, which makes up 15 to 30%. And that's further broken down into the NEAT, which is the non-exercise one. So, chores around the house, going for extra walks, all that type of stuff. And as I've highlighted there, it's the largest amount of energy that you control throughout the day. So increasing that and putting some of that into your day purposely will make a huge difference with the amount of calories you're burning, not just throughout the day, but accumulated over the weeks, over the months. And that's where the calorie deficits come from. Okay, and then we got our actual exercise. So if we're training, we're doing sports, that makes up around about 5 to 10% of that physical activity. Of the energy expenditure through the day. Okay, so now we're just going to go into ways that we can increase energy out. So the very first thing, like I was talking about, is your metabolism. Try to improve your lifestyle to create a healthier metabolism. And here's just a few little tips that you could start implementing straight away. Is drinking enough water. A lot of people are just not drinking enough water throughout the day. Minimum drink 2 liters of water, all depending on how big you are. Larger people need to drink a lot more water, but if you're only drinking a liter and a half, it's just not enough. As soon as you start drinking enough water, you will feel a difference. So give that one a go. Get enough sleep, okay? All aiming for minimum 7 hours, 8 hours worth of sleep, and that will improve your metabolism, because as soon as you start to lack sleep, it starts to mess up your hormones and it slows everything down. So this is all you would have heard, boosting your metabolism, as that picture dictates there. It's not so much boosting your metabolism, it's just creating a healthy one, rather than your body breaking down and all these hormones release that actually cause you to store more energy and hold on to your fat. If you're getting enough sleep, it improves your hormones, so you're going to be burning that fat a lot easier. Eating whole foods, making sure you're getting all of the micronutrients that you need. So that's all like the antioxidants, all the vitamins, the minerals, all of that type of stuff, so that you've got a nice healthy metabolism and everything's working correctly. Exercise regularly, and not just that, making sure you're doing some things that will increase your muscle mass as well. As I said before, increased muscle will improve your calorie burn through the day. And just exercising regularly will keep you nice and healthy as well. And try to reduce your stress as much as possible. It's the same sort of thing as getting enough sleep. So reducing your stress will improve your hormone balance, and you will be more likely to burn off that fat a lot easier if your hormones are in check. Okay, so other ways to increase your energy out. So we got food choices. This is the thermic effect of food that I was talking about before. So protein yields the highest thermic effect of food. So it takes the most amount of energy to burn when you consume it, to actually digest and store into the body. So we don't want to over consume the protein. We just need to make sure we're getting enough. A lot of people are lacking a lot of protein within their diets. So just making sure you're getting a good serve of protein at every single meal. So for instance, a serving of meat is just a nice palm size serving of meat, of any form of meat that you want, at dinner and at lunch, and maybe at breakfast if you like eggs, a couple of eggs for breakfast. And that should be getting you enough protein throughout the day, rather than just eating carbohydrates and fats all day long. Just adding those extra servings of protein will increase the amount of energy you're actually burning to absorb all of this food. So certain couple of protein sources here. So we got where you can get them from. So meat and fish. We've got eggs, dairy products. So there's lots of protein through yogurts and milks and things like that. Nuts and seeds, and legumes and beans as well. So even if you are a vegetarian or vegan or whatever it is, you can still get plenty of protein sources through other ways other than meat. Okay, so physical activity, right? Like I said before, number one thing that you need to improve if you're trying to lose weight, other than actually adding some training or sports or something like that to your weekly routine, you need to look at what you're doing for the rest of the day. If you have a job that's sitting behind a computer all day, every day, then you need to really focus and plan times or things that you can be doing to increase that energy expenditure through the day. Making sure you're doing lots of house chores when you get home, taking the stairs when you go to work instead of taking the elevator. You can even, like, if you have no time while you're at work, you can park a little bit further away from work and walk the rest of the way to work. And then that way you've got no choice. You actually have to walk all the way back as well. You can make tiny little changes. So set a timer on your phone, and every half an hour you've got to get up and walk to the other end of the office and back. Simple little things. If you're doing them every single day, then they will equate to be a large amount of calories over the week. So just putting those little things in there, trust me, will make a big difference to your day. Okay, and increasing or improving the actual exercise routine that you're doing. So doing the right type of training, adding some actual extra training, because again, if you're not doing any at all, then that's a massive portion that you're missing with this calorie deficit. That energy deficit, so that you can start burning that fat. So obviously that should be something that everyone knows. You should be adding some form of training, and as I was talking about before with the muscle building, making sure you're doing some form of strength work at least a couple of times through the week as well, so you can build up that muscle. All right, guys, so that is the key principle to weight loss. So hopefully that gives you a better understanding of how the body actually loses weight and highlights a few areas that you could most probably improve, because yes, a lot of the stuff is probably pretty obvious, but hopefully me explaining it in this way shows how important it actually is, because a lot of people just pay it off thinking, oh yeah, I need to eat less or train more, but there's a lot of stuff in between that if you're not getting that right, then you're just not going to be losing the weight. And like I said before, when people are saying that they're in a calorie deficit but they're not losing weight, it's impossible. They need to be in a calorie deficit. They will be losing weight if they are in a calorie deficit. But if they're just eating less and less and less and not looking at all of the other factors that come into this deficit, then that is the reason that they're not losing the weight, and they're not actually in a calorie deficit just because they're eating less and less. Their hormones could be completely out of whack, their metabolism could be crushed, and they're just not getting any neat exercise through the day. So for their body to maintain weight will take stuff or calories. So by eating less and less, and it just keeps adding on to the problem, it's going to just keep crushing the metabolism. They're neat, so their exercise through the day is going to go even further down because the body's going to react to those that really low calorie diet. So they're going to subconsciously move less through the day as well, not fidgeting as much. So the body finds ways to use less energy if you are actually eating less as well. So be conscious of it all, be aware of where you need to improve, and get in and do the work to actually get it happening. So just in conclusion, just remember the key principle is energy in must be less than energy out. And as I said before, it's not just a matter of eating less and less food or training more and more. There's a lot of stuff in between there. Energy in is through food and drinks. Energy out is through base metabolism, your thermic effect of food, and your physical activity. And there's those two areas of NEAT and EAT. So non-exercise activity, and then the actual planned exercise activity like training and sports. All right, guys, that is it for this presentation. Hopefully I've given you lots of stuff to go away with. Good luck with it, and feel free to reach out if you've got any questions.